Hello, everyone, and welcome to the stream. So this is a what is it? A shareholder
Special edition.
celebration.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Special edition.
special edition. Exactly. Rocket Lab freaking touched $7 today. It didn't stay there, but I mean, who can blame it? We did like 30% in the last 2 days. I think last week when the Japanese carry trade freakout happened, Rocket Lab went down to 420, if you can believe it. So I was thinking that we do a little bit of celebration. We share our thoughts. Maybe some people who are watching, you can come in. I have alcohol-free wine here. I didn't find alcohol-free beer.
There you go. I have
We
iced tea.
celebrate. You have iced tea. Okay.
Yeah.
Dutch. What
Not
happened with
Dutch Bros.
Bros?
Just well, I drank it earlier. I was on the phone with Steven talking about NVIDIA and stuff like that, but I already chugged it. I had that during lunch.
Yeah, awesome. So Curtis, my Rocket Lab holdings are up almost 55,000 this week just by just me drinking coffee. Yeah, I like your coffee drinking habit. More coffee to you.
Yeah, sounds good. It's nice that Vince doesn't have to wake up for a margin call for once. That's nice.
Yeah,
which is good. But yeah, I just want to say, I mean, I've been getting a lot of like love and support and everything like that, and I know everyone's calling out Vince as well. And Vince, I mean, feel free to be a little less humble than me on this, but I think it's nice that you guys are showing support with respect to how much we've been pushing the stock, but we're really doing it to support the folks that are really putting the things up into space, right? I think at the end of the day, they're the ones that are doing all the active work. We're just trying to help market on their behalf to show what's actually happening. But it is nice, they're the ones that are actually turning valves and wrenches, and I'm sitting at lunch looking at private islands. So it's pretty nice in that respect to do the same. So anyway, I just wanted to state that I appreciate all the love and support, but all that to me, I push that right back onto the engineers and the mechanics that are putting stuff up into space in New Zealand and in Virginia, and hopefully many other places in the world not too far from now.
Yeah. I also think it's such a special day because I mean, for me in my life, it's really weird. Like somehow, like I get like when I get bad news, then I get like all bad news at the same time. And then like today, I was in a meeting which was with an investor, which was like the final meeting to get like a very bad period in the company behind me. Like basically, it ended a period where we had bankruptcy risk. We like raised enough capital to like safely continue through this shit, and like it was such a relief. Like I had a very, very tough 1 year basically, and like I come out of the meeting and then I'm like, oh my god, I cannot believe that this like freaking period is over and now there's no more bankruptcy risk in my company. And then I open the portfolio and Rocket Lab is up 16%, and it's so funny because I have no fucking clue why it's up 16%, but I'll take it. But at the same time, I don't know why we went down to the threes either. So I guess I don't know stocks. That's my conclusion.
Well, I know I don't know stocks, that's for damn sure, but I try my best. But no, I think it's just, to me, I had a nice conversation with him after. He's like, what the heck's going on, man? I mean, I think coupled with just being at the front of everyone's, in the front of everyone's faces, retail, and then also getting some institutional buy-in. I think there's a lot of nice news articles that have come out raising the price target, and at least letting people know, like, hey, there's a competitor to SpaceX out there. I mean, is it direct competitor? Is it really chomping at the bits? But no, the answer is no. But it is a second to SpaceX, and SpaceX doesn't deserve all the credit. I think you're starting to actually see people start to wake up that, oh, there could be two people in the space, right? There's enough energy, there's enough opportunity out there. There's a whole wide world of space out there that can support two companies. And that number two company is Rocket Lab. And I think people are starting to kind of recognize that. And I think ASTS, with all the recent news and publicity that's gotten, I think that's gotten a lot of spillover as well. And with Wall Street Bets, starting to tweet about and message about Rocket Lab, I don't think that hurts as well. So like I think how fast we've seen it go up, I think we can obviously see it go back down, but it's nice to know that it's starting to get a little bit more eyes on it, which I think in the long run will mean, better brand recognition, and also, hey, aren't those guys that are not being associated with the guys that like Astra and Velo 3D that are on the verge of, if not have already declared bankruptcy. You're actually seeing people that are giving good praise and well deserved to folks at Rocket Lab.
Yeah. I had a funny call with my dad today, because obviously when the stock is up so much, then like we call each other, and then he's like, I read something in the newspaper that like Rocket Lab did like 2 satellites, and I'm like, yeah, the Escapade ones, and he's like, they do satellites, and I'm like, yeah, like that's like 70% of their business, and then he's like, really? I'm like, well, don't you remember the SDA contract that we won for 500 million like on Christmas? He's like, oh, that was not to launch satellites? I'm like, oh, no, that's to make satellites. And then he's like, it's an interesting company. And I'm like, you're like a shareholder with me, and this is the first time. It's like you're up hundreds of thousands, and now he starts taking interest. So it's a funny guy.
It's really interesting, man. I think that the knowledge base, and it's not to say that anyone's stupid. I think it's just the lack of experience and the lack of in depth, because I was in the same way, before I really started to get a little bit more involved with the industry. It's like I just assumed that if a launch was a launch, and all I cared about was the launch, and I didn't necessarily think that there was a reason for it. I just think that I was so obsessed with launching something into space, I didn't think about what it actually enabled. And I think that we forget about the enablers, and the Rocket Lab is huge in the space systems industry, and they've already had a huge amount of accolades of satellites that they have already participated with at NASA. I mean, you think about it, prime example, Astra was supposed to deliver a lot of the NASA Tropics satellites to space. And this is part of Wild Space that we saw. And with that, after they failed, they basically surrendered that contract and immediately got handed over to Rocket Lab to be able to fulfill. And that gave us the Tropics. We also launched Capstone for NASA. We launched the Psyche mission. There's a long accolade. It will obviously be doing the Mars mission with Escapade here with Blue Origin as the launcher with New Glenn, the first New Glenn rocket. There's a lot of things that Rocket Lab has already participated in from a space systems business. And I think this is a statistic that they should bring back. Maybe it's harder to track now that there's so many launches going on, but before they were very adamant about acknowledging that they wanted to be, before kind of all the space systems piece, they wanted to be the premier launch vehicle. Then it changed into an end-to-end space company, which I agree with. But it's been about 18 months since I've seen them talk about the statistic of when a launch goes into space, is there a Rocket Lab component on it? Because they basically, at one point, when they got done all their M&A, and did such a good job of it, by the way, like a huge amount of bolt-on, and they kind of kept the ground in the speed, not only just going, but ran with it, and turned it up to 10x, by the way. But they used to talk about how like 40% or 50% of all launches had a Rocket Lab component on it. And, whether it was ASI or whether it was, Solero component or something like that, they haven't talked about that statistic in a while. And I'm curious if that's growing or if that's shrinking. But regardless, I mean, I think that people don't recognize that a lot of the components that go into space, Rocket Lab has their fingers on. Whether it's the launch provider or whether it's the satellite itself, there's definitely some sort of components.
Yeah. We can ask them next time they come on. What's
that's a good point.
Yeah. So and guys, you guys who are listening, I know that there's been a lot of news the last hour that came out of Rocket Lab, and we didn't have time, I guess, with Matt to process it. And I skimmed through, and yes, Rocket Lab didn't get the SDA contract. Apparently, Sierra Space is buying ULA, and in a newspaper article, it came up that Rocket Lab was interested in buying ULA, which is very, very, very strange. And I think, are you going to be on Rocket Lab Weekly tomorrow?
Yes, I plan on it.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, because then we can like go through these things and like of course do a more thorough go through of where we think that the stock is going. Yes, so for anybody, it's a celebration thing, but yes, it's a bummer. We did not get the SDA contracts. It went to Lockheed Martin and another company. And it's very, very strange because Lockheed Martin announced yesterday or today that they take over Terran Orbital, and it's Terran Orbital who got the contract. And it feels like the shareholders there were fleeced, or I don't know, scammed out of their money, because they took it private the day before they won a $400 million contract. It's really, really weird.
Yeah. I don't want people to get too discouraged here. Sorry, I just took a bite of something. I just didn't want to make a fool of myself on camera. But I don't want people to get too discouraged, right? These SDA contracts, while at the moment they're few and far between, there's anticipation to have thousands of satellites, and there's only been an announcement of 50, right? I mean, 3 different contracts have been announced so far, one of which Rocket Lab got the contract for, of what was it, 17 or 18 of them, 18, I think. And it's like, you have to think, the number is thousands of satellites for the SDA, and we've only announced 50. So there's many opportunities in the future. So hopefully folks recognize that.
And by the way, guys, if anybody of you wants to join us, I put the StreamYard link in the comment section. And you're welcome to join us and tell us your experience as a Rocket Lab investor. You know, how many shares you own, what's your thesis. You know, keep it short. I'm planning to have the stream go maybe 20 minutes more. And yeah, Matt, I really want to ask you, what do you think this huge run was? Because I think that it's a combination of many things. I think we might have had a small short squeeze on the stock because there's a lot of people who have been shorting Rocket Lab. I think that potentially we had from the ASTS shareholder crowd, because that stock went 10x in the last 3 months. And they are basically a section of what Rocket Lab is, or is like, what I'm trying to say is ASTS is being priced on future plans of a space infrastructure. And we know that Rocket Lab has the same future plans. On top of it, Rocket Lab can manufacture its own satellites and it can launch them on their own rockets. Right. And yet one of the companies is valued, like ASTS is valued, I think, what is it, 8 or 10 billion now?
Yeah, and 8 billion, yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So I was thinking that, like, as the price of ASTS was going up, then it like pulled up Rocket Lab with it. It could have been also an anticipation of the SDA contracts. I don't know what it was, but yeah. What do you think it was? And then we have.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think a lot of it's the options activity, people starting to get fired up, people covering. Some people think that it was because you have so much positive interest getting out there that it's the market makers buying up the stock, so that way they have the ability to kind of offset, because they're always delta neutral, right? They're trying to make fractions of a penny off of every transaction. So it might be them, you know, buying up the stock and then slowly selling it off, you know, as they be able to make the money off of the contracts themselves. Who knows? You know, I don't necessarily know the direct answer, but you think about it from a lens that, you know, ASTS, I'm not saying it's not going to eventually be worth, hey, what's going on, Rusty? It's not going to be worth 8 to 10 billion in the future. But for right now, like you stated, Vince, there's no revenue associated with the company. There's a lot of future potential, and I think there's a lot of eyes on that. And I think people's eyes have turned to, well, shit, this company's already making 400 million. They've launched satellites in space. They have capability, they have experience, and they can launch. Not only launch small, but they will be launching large rockets, and they could actually be the people that launch even some of these ASTS satellites into space. Maybe they deserve some love, and I think that that's probably also some of the things that folks are seeing.
Yeah. Awesome. We have Rusty with us. So please introduce yourself. Welcome to the stream and tell us your Rocket Lab investor story.
Yeah, this is Curtis, not Rusty.
All right, Curtis. Are you Curtis from
Curtis Van Camp?
D Curtis.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you in person, man.
Yeah, very nice.
You know, I just wanted to make one comment on the whole ASTS thing. You know, I got a private message from a guy today, and he basically thinks that ASTS has zero competition for satellite to sell. And, you know, these people, some of them, they don't even realize, you know, they're just up there for this Wall Street bets or whatever with ASTS. And they don't realize SpaceX already has 100 satellites in orbit that are sat to sell capable. And they're testing as we speak. And, you know, the other thing with the whole sat to sell, you know, they've got these contracts with the carriers, but it's all going to come down to who subscribes for it as an individual user and how much they're willing to pay for it. I would have no interest in having satellite communications on my phone. I don't need it. And, you know, it's going to become just a big commodity. So I don't know where the bubble pops with ASTS, but it's, you know, it's totally unknown right now because they don't have anything flying right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Doug put a good comment. ASTS is competition with no space keys. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I think you're right. I did look at the stock, and I even made a video about it. That if the projections are correct, the stock can go up to $64 or something like this. But that's a big if, right? Because you don't have any numbers that you can look at, and the fact that the market is front running it just adds to your risk as an investor. So if you're buying it at $20, I think it's like at $30 now.
Yeah, it's about 30.
Yeah, so that means that you as a new investor, if you're buying it today, your best case scenario is wait, there's an echo somewhere for me. So your best case scenario is that you go to 60, which is only a double up from here, but you're like 3-4 years out from revenue, and you have a gigantic risk. Like, what if the projections are wrong? As Curtis said, that people don't want this service.
Yeah, 100%. I think the most diligent thing that they can do, ASTS, is actually dilute some of the shareholders and get some of that money. You know, I don't know how much cash they have on hand, but I mean, really, if they do dilute a little bit at an $8 billion valuation, they can actually help themselves a good bit. But anyway, Curtis, congratulations on the success, man. I know you're a big holder. What do you see as the biggest catalyst going forward? Like what first and foremost, let me ask 2 questions. What got you most excited about the stock? Because I know you're betting big on it. And then 2, what do you see as the biggest future catalyst in the next 12 to 18 months for the stock?
You know, I got interested in them, you know, basically right around the SPAC time. And, you know, I just started doing automatic buys on Robinhood. Nothing big, you know, from SPAC until January of this year, I had 4,500 shares. And, you know, once we started seeing the price decrease so much, you know, we just started changing our holdings over quite a bit. And so now we've gone 10X on our holdings. But I'm sorry, somebody said something about my hat.
Yeah.
Sure.
There it is.
There it is.
To be very honest, when he showed up, I was like, damn, I was like, that does make sense. I was like, because I'm always a fan of people that can grow really good mustaches, because I can grow a decent beard, but my stash is awful. Like, you know, so I'm always impressed by the people that have a really good mustache. And I was looking at your profile picture the other day. I'm like, I wonder if that guy's stash is really that good. And it really is that good. So congratulations, not only
thanks,
on a phenomenal day in the market, but a healthy stash. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, well, thank you. Back to everything, though, is, you know, I've always been a SpaceX fan. I've always been a space fan in general. But obviously, you know, you can't own SpaceX. You know, and when I started seeing the prices come down in January, I really started doing a lot of research on Rocket Lab, and it didn't take me long. It took me about 1 week to realize that, you know, it may not be completely, you know, undervalued as to where they are financially, and earnings, obviously, you know, they're negative right now. But if you look at their capabilities and where they're going to be in 10 years, I mean, it's a phenomenal opportunity for anybody. But, you know, you have to be long. You know, I had, you know, somebody asked me today, you know, aren't you disappointed that it wasn't still or didn't close at 710? And it's like, hey, you know, I'm not selling for, you know, till 2030 or later. Yeah, 710 would be great, but it doesn't change my day. I'm still very happy for today.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's so funny, like the psychology of this, right? That it's like when I looked at the pre-market, when last time I saw the stock, it was like 2% up, right? And then if you didn't look the whole day and then you just look at the end of the day, you're like, yes, 13%. But the fact that you know that it was at 7 something, you're somehow disappointed. And I mean, I have this a little bit, but it's just like stupid psychology. Like we are up 30% in the last 2 days. I mean,
something similar to that happened to me with ASTS, because I bought in around, you know, in the threes. I don't know exactly what the number was, but I just, you know, immediately put in a stop order at a 7% decrease from the top of the market. You know, so if people don't understand, oh, sorry about the glare, guys.
You're good.
If some people don't understand what that is, you're putting an order and it just keeps tracking the higher and higher this share price goes. Once it hits a maximum, if it ever goes X amount percentage below that, you automatically trigger a sell. So I put a 7% sell in, stop loss on it, and I didn't even pay any attention to it. And I looked at ASTS one day and it was like almost $14. I'm like, this is awesome. And I logged into my portfolio and it's like, oh yeah, but I sold at $12.50. But I mean, but you know, no turning back. You know, at that point, you know, I've got the money in the account, and that actually allowed me to get like 8,000 more Rocket Lab shares. So I mean, you know, who cares? Yeah. So they're at 30, but you can't have glasses on the back of your head, man.
Yeah, no, 100%. And yeah, I'm with you. The sentiment of people are like, you know, it'd be different if it ran up to say like $25 or $30 and it dropped down to say 20, then I'd be kind of upset. But because that might actually be a price, you know, $30 this quickly would be something I'd actually consider, you know, selling, you know, because you're talking about years of accelerated sort of stock price in terms of where the valuation could be. But right now at $3.5 billion market cap, to me, I'm like, there's no way I would sell this at a $3.5 billion market cap with the potential it's going to have in the next 10 years. Yeah, it would take a much larger stock price jump. And I could easily also see when the volume starts trickling down that the price retraces back below $6 a share again. I don't hope it happens for a while, but at the same time, I know I'm not done accumulating if the price is right. So
yeah, I'm out of money, so I'm done accumulating.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately out of money too. I need money to come in so I can buy more.
I think I buy a couple hundred shares every week as I have extra cash in my bank account, but you know, that's pretty much it where I'm at right now. I'm maxed out.
Yeah, same here. Hopefully my real estate business starts kicking again in 2025, and then I can add if the price is still right.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. I got to run real quick.
Yeah, man, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for all the support. It was amazing to speak to you in person.
Yeah, you guys take care.
Talk to you
soon.
Good
luck to the whole group too.
Yeah, group.
Yeah, thank you. Ciao. Cool. So we met Curtis. That's pretty cool.
That was nice to meet him. Yeah, I've been messaging him back and forth through DM, so nice to put a face to that. Now it's nice to know the beautiful thing about, for folks that actually are considering this. I know some people are very much about security and kind of an anonymity and everything like that on X. It's so refreshing to be able to meet somebody that's so like-minded, similar thought process, similar mindset. You're winning together, you're succeeding together, and actually to meet them and they're the same person that's on their profile picture, or, you know, to actually be able to put a face to the name. It's really encouraging to know about the humanity that's behind like a lot of the reason why we do a lot of this stuff, because otherwise it just kind of seems like you're talking to a screen. And it's really helpful. Like even live streaming by yourself is kind of tough. So always having a companion with you always kind of helps out a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't recognize him first. Like his name said Rusty, and I've never seen him before. So it's just when he said Curtis, I still was thinking, and I'm like, it's that Curtis. So
yeah, I saw Rusty and I was like, okay, different than who I thought it was, and then once you said it was Curtis, it's like, oh, it makes perfect sense.
The hat was missing. The brand was off. So, and again, speaking about the psychology, I think that logically we should get a pullback on the stock. So everyone that is here, who is who is disappointed that they missed the Rocket Lab and they cannot buy anymore. I think that it's not sustainable to go up this much this fast, but maybe I will be wrong. So where do you think we go from here, Mr. Matt?
Oh man, I mean, I guess we'll find out on Monday, but I wouldn't be surprised with the pullback. I mean, it's I still think it's a little too early for love in the $7 to $8 range. I think there needs to be a few more catalysts, but at the same time, I still recognize that Rocket Lab is undervalued compared to where I think the capability is. So it's tough, right? I think maybe that might be my psychology of being beaten down over the last few years as a holder in the company. But I'm very comparable to what Curtis had said. Like, I had slowly been accumulating shares, and it wasn't really until the last 12 months or so that I've really been stepping it up with the cadence of Rocket Lab, what quality they're putting out in terms of their look ahead and guidance, and the fact, I think, also that a lot of the capital exposure risk has also been mitigated with so much cash on hand and things like that. It makes me a little bit more confident in being able to pick up way more stock. So, in terms of the actual question, I think it could pull back for sure.
Yeah. Oh my God, we have someone here who bought his entire holding at 366. I mean, that congratulations on the amazing cost average. But why would you sell half of your position at 732? I mean, obviously, you do what you want to do. But for example, I was just thinking today that I bought Palantir at $8. And I remember when it jumped to $15 and we were having these exact conversation. I don't know if you remember in Palantir Weekly that, yeah, the jump was too soon. And like, if you're buying now, it's very overvalued. And there should come a pullback, which actually never really came. But then we went to 20 and then there was a pullback. And then everybody, I remember we were sitting on the weekly and we're like, who the heck is buying at 20? But, we're like happy we're not selling, but who the heck is buying at 20? And the stock is at 32 today. And I think that Rocket Lab is very, very similar, that yes, it went up a lot, but this price is still a very, 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 very fair price. The thesis is intact. The company is executing fantastically. We know that rate cuts are coming, neutron contracts are coming. I just don't see a reason to sell. But I mean, you do you.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't see a reason to sell either. And I'm not just saying that to loft up the stock price, but going back to the Palantir analogy, I mean, you think about it, Palantir is in a very similar space, right? It direct listed in 2020, had a phenomenal 2021, I would say, and then really pulled back extensively in 2022 and had a pretty decent 23. And now I've had a pretty decent 24 as well. But it dropped down to $6, right? I think in that respect, it was like a $20 billion market cap. And I think it's the comparable sort of thought, right? It wasn't making money at the time. It was just getting closer and closer to profitability, but you knew they had the capability. And so I feel like we're going to see a pendulum swing eventually, with a lot of these catalysts that are kind of coming out, right? Like Neutron. I think Neutron might be the AIP for Rocket Lab. If you think about the publicity that it's going to be able to bring, and people are going to start to recognize the capability of the organization. It's not to say that the capability was never there. I think the capability is the Electron, the space systems business that has been churning along, that's been bolted on over the past several years. But I think that the Neutron is going to be the place where people actually start to acknowledge that capability. And with that, I think that is going to be the place where, like you stated, we get to a place where you might be trading at an overvaluation in terms of what you think the stock price might be worth at, and I think there's going to be that pendulum swing. Are we in the midst of it? I think maybe not. I think that this might be more Wall Street bets driven rather than actual fundamentals driven. But I think eventually there's going to be a place where people do have their eyes truly opened, and this actually is a function of not just a bunch of folks really messing with the stock price and get the volume up there, but actual consistent holders. And I think that there might be a hangover of people that with the current volume that you're seeing will still be drawn to Rocket Lab. I think that there's people that are opening up their eyes to the story, hopefully, even though it's Wall Street bets. And the reason why, let's say if the stock went up, let's say the 20% or so that it has over the past couple days, maybe there's going to be a hangover of people that stick around, and that'll only help, provide a floor to the stock price going forward. But I'd say 12 months from now, you're going to see that shift to being undervalued, like I think we are today at Rocket Lab, to potentially being overvalued. And it'll be tough to kind of gauge, exactly like Palantir, what is it actually worth? And I think you'll get to the place where there's always going to be people bidding up the stock, because eventually people are going to recognize, man, these guys are a healthy number two, and there's so much distance between everybody else and SpaceX, and these guys are way ahead of everybody else. They're still behind SpaceX, but not by the margin that I think everybody else thinks. And so I think that'll become
also
evident.
what's crazy. This is also what's crazy. What Curtis just said, like even $100 a share is only 50 billion in market cap. And as you said, like also market cap wise, like SpaceX is here, and like Rocket Lab, you wouldn't even see it on the freaking chart. So it's like we're so early on Rocket Lab, and it's so interesting as an investor, because we're having this, like, it's such an interesting problem to have, when the stock price starts going up, and then do I keep adding, because it psychologically is hard, when you were buying in the 4s and now it's 6. And all I can say is I was helping my daughter invest in stocks, and it's basically my money, but she did chores, so it's like her money, right? And then I bought Palantir for her at $27. And it's so interesting that at the time when I was buying it, I'm like, okay, it's very expensive. Like, I don't know, it felt like the last time I bought Palantir, it was in the 6s. And now I was buying at 27 and still going up. It's still doing its thing. So I think Rocket Lab is going to, at one day go to 10, and then it's going to feel expensive, and then it will go to 15, and then you will wish that you would have bought more at 10. It's this freaking psychology that we all need to control somehow.
No, I think that's well stated. I mean, I think a lot of people have yet to really to find their way to the company. I think some people even still think we're talking about Rocket Mortgage, believe it or not. RKT, the ticker symbol. So I've had something like when I mentioned to people, they're like, "What do you mean RKT?" And I'm like, "No, man, you're looking at the wrong company." Like, come on, guy. So I don't know. I went through the same thing in 2022 with Palantir, and it wasn't really until the stock started making money. And I think, some people, I get it. Some people they'd rather have the security of the cash flow from the company, because at least at that point they know it's not going to zero.
This is
there you go. Like, God damn it. So I thought I was going to make all my money with these rate cuts, and that's the whole reason. A small finance company. Damn. That's why actually I think that's why the reason why we topped out at $7 today and we actually saw a retracement 50 cents is because people actually realized it wasn't Rocket Mortgage, and they were like, wrong company. Let me sell.
Yeah. You're onto such an interesting point, because we're each different. We are each individual investors, and we have different strategies. And if you are a certain type of investor who has a certain type of risk level, Rocket Lab is not a buy yet. And I think that's most of the investors, like most of the individual investors on Wall Street. Did I say that correctly? So I think that the most money, like not necessarily maybe most of the individual, but the most money that is invested in Wall Street is, they look at like, is the company profitable? And then if it's a no, then they're like not even looking at the company, right? And my uncle was like this. I told him about Rocket Lab, and then he's like, but this is a dream company. Like, they're losing money every month. They're like selling you smoke. It's like, let me know when they're profitable. And I'm like, yeah, it will be $20-$30 at that time. And he's like, I don't care. Tell me then, you know. And I wrote him an
There's
SMS.
people that are okay letting a 200%, 300% return go, acknowledging that they will be in a profitable company. And so I feel like that's a lot of people. I feel like that's a lot of people at Jefferies. It's a lot of people that are getting told about the stock from Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, you know, all these folks. And that's why people ask about the question, right? When are you guys going to be cash flow break even? You know, there's certain companies that are historically unprofitable, like Amazon, and they've obviously grown into $2 trillion companies. But, you know, I think right now people are a little bit afraid of that. We've gotten away from that. Money's not dirt cheap as it used to be. You can't continue to refinance your way out of everything like you used to be able to, you know, 5-10 years ago. And so I'm with you 100%. I feel like in 24 months, we will have a lot of people starting to entering the stock because of that profitability piece. And it's the same thing we're starting to see with Dutch Bros. The same thing we're starting to see with SoFi. We're starting to form a base on SoFi. I feel like it's the same thing that we saw around Palantir. People are like, oh, it actually makes money now? Let me raise my interest, right? But I actually had a phone call with somebody earlier today. I said, my guy, you know, you're missing out on all the fun. I was like, there might be a retracement, but you know what's getting into you is like it's not profitable yet. It's not profitable yet, right? And so that's the piece. I think that's the last ticket after Neutron. Once you get profitability, I feel like everybody and their mother is going to want to be on board. But until then, it's still a space company. Very few, if any, have ever made money. I mean, shit, you just had ULA, a combo partnership between some of the best engineering contractors in the world, aerospace, nonetheless, and they're selling off. So it's an interesting time. I understand where some of those guys are coming from, but it allows us to be early. And I think that's okay.
And I feel that it's funny. Curtis is writing, it's zero risk right now to me. And yeah, like guys are pointing out in the comment that there's never zero risk. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure Curtis also understands that. But, you know, like Warren Buffett had a saying that, you know, the risk is what you don't know, you know, and the research that we're doing and, you know, like the way that we're following the company, I feel like it takes out lot of the risk. And basically that's how this type of retail investing that we are doing, that we go like fanatically into a company and, you know, you study it and, you know every little thing about it. I think it negates the risk very, very much and sets us up for fantastic returns. Somebody asked me here if I'm worried about my $8 covered calls, and they were down very substantial today. Like I was 80-something thousand up at one point on my Rocket Lab shares, and then down 64,000 on my on my covered calls. But they're $8 cover calls, right? So they're still out of the money. And there's one thing I'm certain of in Rocket Lab, and that there's going to be high volatility. So I'm not worried about the cover calls. And yes, like theoretically, like we could go up to 12, and I think that then we would come back down and then go up. I mean, like look at how much this stock has been swinging. Like we have been going from like 4 to 6 to 4 to 8, from 8 to 3.5 to, yeah. So I think I'm going to be able to, in the worst case, roll up the call options, and that I feel that that's a good problem if I have to roll up my call options.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong. I mean, luckily it's January 25 and it's not January 26, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
I think that we're still so many catalysts behind. There's a lot of things that are going to happen in the background that we'll know and we'll kind of be able to win, like quick wins on our end. Like, for example, in the next 6 months, some of those haste missions, people might look at those as just like, okay, it's another rocket going up. But I know that if those are successful and they meet the criteria, that those could generate hundreds of, if not billions of dollars in future revenue, right? But that won't be realized, you know, so that's a small win in the next 6 months, huge potential forward catalyst. but it's not going to get recognized until 6 months, a year, maybe even 3 years down the road, until some of those contracts get fully fulfilled, right? And actually signed up for. There's negotiations. So there's a lot of things that I think will be small catalysts, but it's not going to be anything, in my opinion, that's going to drive the stock. I'm trying to think of really the only other thing that I think could come out of left field, other than maybe Wall Street bets or huge coverage from a major institution that really unlocks visibility on the company, is if there's a Neutron contract, which at the moment I don't necessarily foresee happening, at least until early 2025. I mean, there might be something before the end of 2025 or 2024, but I would probably say it would happen 6 months at the earliest before. But even still, I think they would have to be willing to pay, I'd say, full price, which I think is $60 to $65 million for a launch. And I just don't think that at the moment people are willing to do that until, one, I think that, how do I say this? A huge catalyst, which would be bad for space, but good catalyst for Rocket Lab, is unfortunately if New Glenn gets delayed out of the launch window for Mars. And I think that that'll be huge, because what other contract does New Glenn have on the agenda other than that? I don't know. But that would put, let's just say, the first launch for New Glenn into mid-25, and then that would put Neutron and New Glenn at the same time period. And I know New Glenn's a larger rocket comparatively to Neutron, but it's still competition, right? So my thought process is if New Glenn ends up being a dud and doesn't necessarily get off the pad, then that just puts more spotlight on Neutron. And that could be, in the shorter term, negative spotlight, like, oh, all space companies are junk, they're all going to zero. But in the case of, say, a positive outcome for Neutron, a lot of spotlight and a lot of potential market share ownership that Rocket Lab can pick up if New Glenn gets delayed.
Yeah. Cool. I think that this was a good time for the stream. I need to go get some sleep so I can be on Palantir Weekly. Are you coming to Palantir Weekly also?
I haven't been asked yet, but I anticipate if I'm allowed.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But I might stick around. I've got some people in my chat. I might finish up their questions, but feel free to get some sleep, and then I'll probably sign off here in like a minute or two after I run through some of these questions.
If I end the stream, does it end it for you also? I think it
does. No, I think it stays on for me. Well, if you hit end stream, yes, it'll end for both of us.
Because the problem is that if I leave the studio, then also on my channel it will be like endlessly going.
Good point. I didn't think about that. Okay, then we can just call it, and maybe I'll do another stream on my own afterwards.
Yeah,
not a problem. I might take a shower and stuff first. Anyway,
awesome. Cool. All right, thanks for everyone. See you guys tomorrow on Rocket Lab Weekly.
Yeah, you guys rock. Talk to you guys tomorrow.
Yeah, ciao.